The fleet emerged from fold space like ghosts returning from the grave. 10,000 ships, each one carrying the weight of 60,000 years of waiting, appeared at the edge of what was once the Sol system. Commander Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the flagship Remembrance and stared at the main. His hands did not shake. His voice did not waver, but his heart broke all over again. Where Earth should have been, there was nothing but rocks and dust. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity was gone. Only a scattered asteroid field remained, still carrying the faint radioactive signature of the weapons that had destroyed it so long ago. Confirming sensor readings, Lieutenant Laura King said from her station. Her voice was steady, but Carter could see the tears forming in her eyes. This is the Sol system, third orbital position. These are the remains of Earth. No one on the bridge spoke. They had all known what they would find. The archives had recorded everything, but knowing something and seeing it were two very different things. Dr. Amy Shaw stepped forward. She was the chief historian, the keeper of humanity's memory. Her job was to make sure no one ever forgot what had happened here. 60,047 years ago, she said quietly, the Dominion arrived in this system. They gave no warning. They made no demands. They simply decided that humanity was a threat that needed to be removed. Carter turned to face his crew. Men and women from 100 different ships were watching through the fleet communication network. Millions of humans, all descended from the survivors who had escaped on the colony ship Exodus, were listening to every word. 8 billion people lived on Earth, Carter said. 8 billion lives ended in 6 hours. They did not come to conquer. They came to erase. They wanted to wipe humanity from existence as if we had never been born. He paused and looked back at the debris field. Somewhere in that cloud of rocks were the ashes of cities, the dust of mountains, the scattered atoms of everyone who had not made it to the Exodus in time. They almost succeeded, Carter continued. One ship escaped. 50,000 survivors fled to the far edge of the universe and hid on a world they named New Eden. For 60,000 years we rebuilt, we grew, we advanced, and we remembered. Captain Cole stood at the tactical station. He was a soldier, born and raised for one purpose. His great-grandmother had been a child on the Exodus. She had watched Earth burn from the observation deck. That memory had been passed down through his family like a sacred fire. Commander, Cole said, the fleet is ready. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon. We have waited long enough. Carter nodded slowly. I know, Captain, but first we honor the dead. The ceremony was simple. Every ship in the fleet dimmed its lights. Every human being stopped what they were doing and stood in silence. Dr. Shaw read the names of the cities that had once covered Earth. New York, Tokyo, London, Cairo, Beijing, Mumbai, names that existed now only in the archives, memories of places that would never be seen again. Elder Brooks appeared on the. He was the leader of the Council of Remembrance, the governing body that had guided humanity through its long exile. His face was old, but his eyes burned with the same fire that had kept humanity going for thousands of generations. We do not seek this war for glory, Brooks said. We do not seek it for territory or resources. We seek it because justice demands it. They took everything from us. Our home, our history, our place in the galaxy. Today we take it back. After the ceremony, Carter called his senior officers to the war room. Holographic displays showed the current state of the galaxy. The Dominion still existed. In 60,000 years, they had expanded to control over 400 star systems. They had continued their practice of destroying any species they considered a threat. They never stopped, Dr. Shaw said, pointing to a list of extinct civilizations. The bright swimmers of Prime, the stone builders of all gone, all erased by the. Lieutenant King pulled up another display. But they have grown weak. Their technology has barely advanced since they destroyed Earth. They rely on numbers and fear, not innovation. And us, Cole asked. King allowed herself a small smile. 60,000 years of focused development, weapons that bend the fabric of space, shields that can absorb a star's worth of energy, engines that move faster than their sensors can detect. We are not the primitive species they tried to exterminate. We are something else entirely. Carter studied the maps. The path to them would take them through dozens of systems. There would be battles. There would be death. But for the first time in 60,000 years, humanity was no longer hiding. "There is one more thing," Dr. Shaw said. She brought up an image captured by a long-range probe. It showed a museum filled with artifacts from their conquered worlds. And there, behind a glass case, were human objects, a child's toy, a piece of jewelry, a flag from one of Earth's nations. "They keep trophies," Shaw said, her voice cold. "They display the remains of the species they murder. They are proud of what they did to us." The room fell silent. Carter looked at the faces of his officers. He saw grief. He saw anger. But most of all, he saw determination. "Set course for the inner galaxy," Carter ordered. "It is time to learn the truth. Humanity did not die 60,000 years ago. We just went away for a while." The fleet turned as one and began to move. Behind them, the debris field of Earth slowly faded from view, but none of them would ever forget what they had seen. None of them would ever forget why they were here. The long wait was over. The reckoning had begun. The fleet moved through empty space like a silent storm. For 3 months they traveled through systems that had no life, no planets worth nodding, nothing but cold stars and ancient rocks. Commander Carter used this time to prepare. Every ship ran combat drills. Every soldier checked their weapons. Every pilot practiced maneuvers they hoped would never be needed. Dr. Amy Shaw spent her days in the archive room, surrounded by holographic displays of old Earth. She had recordings of beaches and mountains, cities and forests, all preserved in perfect detail by the survivors on the Exodus. Sometimes crew members would come to watch. They would sit in silence and look at a world none of them had ever seen but all of them called home. "My family was from a place called Kansas," a young engineer told Shaw one evening. "Flat land, they say, wheat fields as far as the eye could see. I have never seen wheat growing in a field. I have never felt wind that did not come from a machine." Shaw nodded. She understood. Every human carried this weight. They mourned a home they had never known, grieved for ancestors they had never met. It was a strange kind of sorrow, passed down through thousands of generations like an inheritance no one wanted but everyone accepted. Specialist Clark was the first to detect the signal. She worked in the communications center, monitoring every frequency for any sign of activity. When her console lit up with transmissions, she nearly dropped her coffee. "Commander," she said over the ship's communication system, "I am picking up military traffic. We are entering occupied space." Carter arrived on the bridge within minutes. Lieutenant King already had the tactical display running. Red dots marked patrol routes, military bases, and colony worlds. There were hundreds of them spread across the sector. "They have grown fat," Captain Cole observed. He stood with his arms crossed, studying the enemy positions. No serious defenses on their border. They have not fought a real war in thousands of years. They just bully weaker species into submission. Elder Brooks joined them via holographic link from his ship. The old man looked at the positions and shook his head slowly. 60,000 years, he said. In all that time, they never changed. They never grew. They just kept doing the same thing over and over, conquering, destroying, taking trophies. "That is their weakness," Carter said. "They believe they are the strongest force in the galaxy. They have never faced anyone who could challenge them." King pulled up a detailed analysis. "Our technology is approximately 12,000 years ahead of theirs. Our weapons can penetrate their shields with ease. Our ships can outrun anything they have. In a direct confrontation, we would win every time." "But we are not here for direct confrontation," Shaw reminded them. "Not yet. We need intelligence. We need to understand how the galaxy has changed since the Exodus." Carter agreed. He ordered the fleet to hold position while scout ships moved ahead. For weeks, they gathered information. They intercepted communications, mapped patrol routes, and studied the way of war. What they found made their blood run cold. They had not stopped with Earth. In the 60,000 years since humanity fled, they had destroyed 17 other species. Some had been young civilizations, barely reaching for the stars. Others had been ancient cultures with histories spanning millions of years. All of them were gone now, reduced to museum exhibits and trophy displays. The Shah said, reading from the intercepted data, "A peaceful species known for their art and music. They destroyed their 23,000 years ago because they refused to surrender their cultural artifacts." "The Iron Children of," King added, "a machine civilization that had existed for 50 million years. They considered them unnatural. They dismantled every single one of them." Cole slammed his fist against the wall. "They are not warriors, they are murderers. They kill anything that is different from them." Brooks spoke from his holographic display. "Now you understand why we have spent 60,000 years preparing. They are not just our enemy, they are a disease. They infect the galaxy with fear and death. If we do not stop them, they will continue until there is nothing left but themselves." Carter stood in silence, absorbing all of this information. He had been raised on stories of Earth's destruction. He had trained his entire life to lead this mission of justice, but he had not truly understood until now. This was not just about revenge. This was about stopping something evil. "Commander," Clark called out, "I am detecting something strange. A probe has entered the sector. It appears to be scanning our position." The bridge went silent. King checked her sensors. "It has detected us. It is transmitting data back to command." "Can we destroy it?" Cole asked. "We could," King replied, "but the transmission has already been sent. They know something is here." Carter thought for a moment, then he made his decision. "Let them wonder. Let them send patrols to investigate. They will find nothing. We will be gone before they arrive." He turned to face where the stars stretched out in an endless field of light. Somewhere out there, they were going about their lives, never knowing that the species they had tried to erase was coming for them. 60,000 years ago, they thought they killed us," Carter said quietly. "They were wrong, and soon they will learn what happens when you try to destroy humanity." The fleet moved again, slipping deeper into the galaxy like shadows through the night. They would search for them. They would find only empty space and unanswered questions, and their fear would grow. That was exactly what Carter wanted. The ship was small and damaged. It drifted through space with its engines dead and its hull covered in scorch marks. When the human fleet detected it, Captain Cole wanted to ignore it. They had more important matters to deal with, but Commander Carter gave a different order. "Bring them aboard," he said. "Let us see who else lives under the shadow of the—" They were a gentle species. They had soft gray skin, large dark eyes, and voices that sounded like wind chimes. The survivors from the damaged ship numbered only 12. They had been fleeing a patrol when their engines failed. When they saw humans for the first time, they could not believe their eyes. "You are the ones from Earth," the captain whispered. Her name was, and she trembled as she spoke. "We thought you were a myth, a story our grandparents told to give us hope, the species that escaped the ones who got away." Dr. Shaw stepped forward. "We are real, and we have returned." Fell to her knees, tears flowed from her large eyes. "Then the stories are true, there is hope after all." Through humanity learned about the Galactic Concord. It was a loose alliance of species that survived under rule. They were not strong enough to fight back. They simply endured, hoping that one day something would change. Ambassador Price was sent to make contact. He was a patient man who had studied diplomacy for most of his life. But even he was not prepared for what happened when he arrived at the Concord gathering station. The station was massive, home to representatives from 30 different species. When Price's shuttle landed, thousands of aliens crowded the docking bay. Word had spread. The humans had returned. High Arbiter was ancient even by galactic standards. His species had been among the first to bow before the Dominion. He had lived long enough to see dozens of civilizations destroyed. When he looked at Ambassador Price, his old eyes filled with something that might have been wonder. 60,000 years, said. We thought they had finally succeeded in killing hope, but here you stand. Price bowed respectfully. We are not here to bring hope, High Arbiter. We are here to bring justice. The conquered gathered in the great hall to hear what humanity had to say. Price spoke for 3 hours. He told them about the Exodus and the long journey to New Eden. He told them about 60,000 years of preparation and development. He told them that humanity had not come back to hide among the stars. They had come back to end the threat forever. To prove his words, Price arranged a demonstration. A single human cruiser faced off against a captured warship in a controlled area of space. The conquered representatives watched from observation platforms. The battle lasted 11 seconds. The human ship moved so fast it seemed to teleport. Its weapons cut through the shields like they were made of paper. When it was over, the warship was drifting wreckage, and the human cruiser did not have a single scratch. Silence filled the observation deck. Then slowly the gathered species began to react. Some cheered, some wept, some simply stared in disbelief. Hal asked, "How have you achieved this?" Price smiled sadly. "We had 60,000 years and one purpose. We did not waste a single day." While Price built alliances, the rest of the fleet continued gathering intelligence. Lieutenant King discovered something disturbing. They had begun to move military assets toward their border. They still did not know exactly what was happening, but they knew something was wrong. "They are scared," King reported to Commander Carter. "For the first time in their history, they are facing something they do not understand." Overseer was the commander assigned to investigate the disturbances. He was a veteran soldier who had participated in the destruction of 2 civilizations. When his patrols reported seeing unknown ships that moved faster than anything in the fleet, he dismissed it as sensor malfunction. Then he received images from a remote monitoring station. The images showed human ships. The symbols on their hulls matched records from an extinction event 60,000 years in the past. Stared at the images for a long time. Finally, he sent a transmission to the High Council on there. "The humans survived," he reported. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "They have returned, and they have come with weapons we cannot match." Back on the Remembrance, Captain Cole returned from a reconnaissance mission with information that changed everything. He walked into the war room with a hard look on his face and dropped a holographic recorder on the table. "I found this in an outpost," he said. "You need to see it." The recording showed a museum. Display cases lined the walls, filled with artifacts from destroyed civilizations. And there, in the center of the room, was a special exhibit labeled The Human Extinction. Inside the exhibit were items taken from Earth before its destruction: children's toys, family photographs, books and artwork. And in the middle of it all, preserved in a glass case, was a human skeleton. A placard beneath it read, "Specimen from a primitive species eliminated for galactic security." The war room fell silent. Dr. Shaw covered her mouth with her hand. Elder Brooks closed his eyes. Captain Cole's hands curled into fists. Commander Carter stared at the image for a long moment. Then he turned to his officers. "No more reconnaissance," he said. "No more waiting. We know everything we need to know." He looked at each of them in turn. "It is time to show the galaxy what happens when you make trophies out of human beings." The fleet began to move. The war for justice was about to begin. The attack began at midnight Galactic Standard Time. 12 military installations across 4 star systems were hit simultaneously. The commanders had no warning. Their sensors detected nothing until human ships appeared directly above their positions. Then everything turned to fire. Commander Carter watched the battle reports from the bridge of the Remembrance. Each screen showed a different engagement. Each engagement ended the same way. Human weapons tore through defenses. Human ships danced around enemy fire. Human soldiers moved with precision that made the forces look like children playing with toys. In 6 hours, all 12 installations were destroyed or captured. The lost over 200 ships and 50,000 soldiers. Humanity lost 7 ships and 400 people. The first battle is won, Carter announced to the fleet. But this is just the beginning. We do not stop until the Dominion falls. Overseer was aboard his flagship when the attack began. He had been moving toward the border to investigate the reports of human ships. Now he watched in horror as his entire sector collapsed. "How is this possible?" he demanded. His officers had no answers. The humans moved too fast, hit too hard, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. It was not war, it was slaughter. Opened a direct channel to the High Council, he said. "The humans have returned. I do not know how they survived. I do not know where they were hiding, but I know this, they remember. After 60,000 years, they remember everything we did to them, and they have come for revenge." The message spread across the Dominion like a plague. Fear followed it. The had ruled through terror for thousands of years. Now, for the first time, they were the ones who were afraid. Captain Cole led the ground assault on Prime. The had occupied this world for 8,000 years, using its gentle inhabitants as slave labor. When human descended from the sky, the looked up in confusion. When human soldiers emerged with weapons blazing, they watched in disbelief. The garrison fought back, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Human combat suits shrugged off their weapons. Human rifles punched through their armor. In 3 hours, the occupation was over. Cole stood in the central square of the capital as the last prisoners were led away. They emerged from their hiding places slowly, unable to believe what had happened. "You are free," Cole told them. "They will never hurt you again." An elder approached him. She was old, her gray skin wrinkled and her eyes clouded with age. She reached out and touched Cole's armored hand. "We have told stories about your kind," she said. "Stories of a species that would not die, stories of warriors who would return to save us. I never believed them. I thought they were just dreams to help us sleep." Cole knelt so he could look into her eyes. "They were not dreams, they were promises, and we always keep our promises." The campaign continued. System after system fell to the human advance. Lieutenant King guided the fleet through enemy territory with perfect precision, finding weaknesses in defenses that the enemy did not even know existed. Dr. Shaw recorded everything, building a complete record of crimes that would be shared with the entire galaxy. But it was not all victory. On the mining world of, Commander Carter faced his first real test. A transport ship tried to flee the human advance. It was carrying civilians, families of the soldiers who had been stationed on the planet. Cole wanted to destroy it. "They are the enemy," he argued. "Their ancestors killed our world. Why should we spare them?" Carter looked at the transport on the. He saw the heat signatures of hundreds of lives inside. Women, children, elders. None of them had ever raised a weapon against humanity. "Because we are not them," Carter said quietly. "If we kill innocents, we become the same monsters who destroyed Earth. Our ancestors did not survive for 60,000 years, so we could become what we hate." The transport was allowed to leave. News of this decision spread through the fleet. Some disagreed with it, but most understood. Humanity was not here to commit genocide. They were here to end one. Elder Brooks spoke to Carter privately after the incident. The old man's face was unreadable. "I have dedicated my entire life to this mission," Brooks said. "I was taught that the must be destroyed completely, every last one of them. That was what my parents taught me and their parents before them. Carter nodded. I understand, Elder, but I believe our ancestors would want us to be better than our enemies. They would want us to build something new, not just tear down something old. Brooks was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps 60,000 years of hate has blinded us to other possibilities. I will think on this. The campaign pushed deeper into Dominion space. More worlds were liberated. More species joined the fight against their former masters. The military crumbled under the pressure. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Lieutenant King pulled up the navigation charts. One destination remained. One final target. Prime, she said. There, if we take that, the war is over. Carter stared at the holographic display of the billions of beings lived there. Billions of beings whose ancestors had ordered the destruction of Earth. Set course, he ordered. It is time to finish this. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. The final battle was approaching. Prime was beautiful. From orbit, the looked like a jewel floating in space. Blue oceans, green continents, cities that sparkled in the sunlight. Commander Carter stood on the bridge of the Remembrance and looked down at the world that had ordered the death of his ancestors. 10,000 human ships surrounded the planet. Their weapons were armed. Their soldiers were ready. One command and Prime would burn just as Earth had burned 60,000 years ago. We are receiving a transmission, Specialist Clark reported. It is from the High Sovereign himself. Carter nodded. Put it through. The face that appeared on them was old and tired. The High Sovereign had ruled for 3 centuries, but he had never faced anything like this. His eyes were filled with something Carter had never seen in a before. Fear. Commander of the human fleet, the Sovereign said, I speak to you not as an enemy but as a leader who seeks to end this conflict. What happened to your world was a tragedy, but it happened 60,000 years ago. No alive today was responsible for that decision. Please, I beg you, do not punish the innocent for the crimes of the dead. Carter listened in silence. Behind him, his officers watched with hard faces. Captain Cole's hand rested on his weapon. Elder Brooks stood with his arms crossed, waiting. You speak of innocence, Carter replied finally. Let me tell you about innocence. There were children on Earth, millions of children. They did not even know what they were. They had never done anything to you. They were playing. They were laughing. They were dreaming about their futures. Your ancestors killed them all. The Sovereign lowered his head. I know. The records of that time are kept in our archives. What was done to your people was wrong. I do not deny this. And it was not just Earth, Carter continued. Though the bright swimmers of Prime, the iron children of 17 species, wiped from existence because you decided they did not deserve to live. Trillions of lives ended, entire cultures erased, and you kept trophies. You displayed the bones of the dead as decorations. The Sovereign said nothing. There was nothing he could say. Dr. Shaw stepped forward. She had been waiting for this moment for her entire life. Every historian in human civilization had been preparing for it. We have documented everything, she said. Every extinction, every genocide, every atrocity committed by the Dominion across 60,000 years. This record has been shared with every species in the galactic conquered. The galaxy knows what you are. Ambassador Price spoke next. The conquered has voted. 37 species have condemned the Dominion for crimes against sentient life. You have no allies, no friends, no one who will speak in your defense. The Sovereign looked at the faces of the humans arrayed against him. He saw no mercy there, but he also saw something else. Something that gave him a small sliver of hope. What do you want? He asked. What will satisfy your need for justice? Commander Carter turned to look at his officers. He saw Elder Brooks, who had spent his entire life teaching hatred. He saw Captain Cole, who had been raised for war. He saw Dr. Shaw, who carried the weight of 8 billion dead. He saw Lieutenant King, who had guided them across the stars to this moment. And he saw something else. He saw the faces of the they had freed, the gratitude of the oppressed species who had joined their cause, the hope that had spread across the galaxy at the news of defeats. This was not just about revenge. It had never been just about revenge. 60,000 years ago, Carter said slowly, your ancestors tried to erase humanity from existence. They failed. We survived. We grew strong. And now we have returned with the power to do to you exactly what you did to us. He paused. The bridge was completely silent. But we will not, Carter continued. We are not you. We do not destroy civilizations. We do not murder innocents. We do not make trophies from the bones of the dead. The sovereign's eyes widened. Then what will you do? The Dominion ends today, Carter declared. Your military will be completely disbanded. Your weapons will be destroyed. Every species you conquered will be freed. Every world you occupied will be returned to its original inhabitants, and you will face judgment. Judgment. A galactic tribunal. Every species you wronged will have a voice. Every crime will be examined. Every victim will be heard. The guilty will be punished according to law, not vengeance. You will answer for what you have done, not with extinction, but with truth. Elder Brooks stepped forward. For a moment, Carter thought the old man would object, but Brooks only nodded slowly. I have spent my life teaching hate, Brooks said. I believed that destroying the completely was the only answer, but the commander is right. If we become what we hate, then they will have one after all. They will have turned us into monsters like themselves. The sovereign bowed his head. I accept your terms. The Dominion will surrender. The war ended not with fire, but with words. Human soldiers landed on Prime, not to destroy, but to oversee the disarmament. The military was dissolved. Their weapons were taken apart. Their empire was broken into free and independent worlds. The trials lasted for years. Hundreds of leaders were convicted of crimes against sentient life. They spent their remaining days in prison, never to harm anyone again. And in the Sol system, something wonderful began. Engineers arrived with terraforming equipment. Scientists brought seeds and soil samples preserved for 60,000 years. Slowly, carefully, a new world began to take shape in the orbit where Earth had once been. They called it New Earth. It would never be the same as the original. Nothing could replace what was lost. But it was a home, a place for humanity to return to, a world built not on hate but on hope. Commander Carter stood on the observation deck of the Remembrance, watching the first green shoots appear on New Earth's surface. Dr. Shaw stood beside him. We did it, she said quietly. We actually did it. Carter nodded. The historians will argue for centuries about whether we made the right choice. Some will say we should have destroyed them completely. Others will say we showed too much mercy. What do you think? Carter was quiet for a moment, then he smiled. I think our ancestors would be proud, not because we were strong enough to destroy our enemies, but because we were wise enough to choose something better. That is what it means to be human. That is why we survived. The new Earth turned slowly below them, green and blue and full of promise. After 60,000 years, humanity had finally come home. And this time, they were here to stay.